All right, guys. So this is gonna be the first rendition here of a podcast called. Actually, I don't. I think I want to call it. I think Unturned Stones.
Okay.
The idea being, it's most guys have all these memories of their childhood that they've never really processed or talked about, or maybe nobody's ever gotten a chance to dig into it with them. And that's kind of the idea behind this is Unturned Stones. Questions that nobody's ever asked most guys, things that most guys have never talked about out loud. Mm-hmm. And today for our first podcast, our guest is Justin Quintero. We've been knowing each other for quite some time, and
hell yeah.
Somebody that I look up to, and I love the grind and the hustle. And
I look up to you too, dude. Thank you.
Man, too many people in this world let life just fucking push them over, and I love the fact that you're somebody who's actively, like, every day getting after it. And
thanks, dude.
It's amazing how little people in the world actually do that.
Yeah, for sure. I see dudes every single day where I'm just like, not that I am fully living to my potential, because I definitely don't think that, but where I'm like, oh my God, I feel like you could be doing so much more with, like, your life, or like not even like success-wise, but like you could be doing more to get to where you say you want to be, type thing. You know what I mean? That type of stuff.
For sure.
Even just like simple as like losing weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, based on this idea that we're talking about here, the reason I got like behind this podcast is I know guys like you, and I've known guys like you in my life. I follow guys like you on the internet, and there's so much for people who aren't in this either fitness space or like the self-improvement space. Some of the things that guys like yourself do can seem like such an enigma. How does somebody get up every day and make all this food and always training and try to be happy and try to fill life? So I wanted to try to find a way to distill information from people's past and how it affects their adulthood, how it affects the way that they act through the world around them.
Yeah.
So particularly from that, and this is something for myself, is like how my relationship with my dad defines my relationship with other men, how my relationship with my mom defines my relationship with women, and so forth. So that's kind of where this idea was born. I very specifically recently started seeing how these connections are happening for myself, and I want to learn more about myself by asking others their experience, because I find more often than not, I think that I'm the only one feeling something, or I don't think somebody can relate to feeling, but people do. People more often than not relate to the things that's going through our heads.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea, because I think that there is like this heavy push for grind culture, masculinity, and stuff like that, and I definitely fell into a loop of it for a while, and I still consider myself in that space and in that realm, but I think that there's so much that's not talked about that kind of also ties into it, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Because that's almost like where this comes from for me is it's people see somebody who grinds really hard and they almost can't relate to it, but
it's not relatable.
They very likely can't relate to it because your childhoods probably don't relate. So that's almost like where this goes back even further here.
Yeah, for sure.
So to kind of dive into it, I've asked you some questions before. I kind of have a little familiarity with your childhood, but I'm just going to talk to you like I don't know anything.
Yeah,
I'm just going to ask you questions.
Yeah.
So,
all
right.
Let's see what happens.
So, your parents are divorced. When did they get divorced?
That's a really interesting question because I still don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that I think it was when I was around 11, maybe 9, between those formative years. But what's interesting is that my parents always lived together, like all the way through. They still live together. But it's interesting because I was told that they were like separated or whatever, right? And so they would sleep in different rooms. And I never knew when they fully actually got divorced. I still don't know to this day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 11 is kind of when you think it happened.
Yeah, around that time.
Do you have memories of them being very like happy together, or like them showing a lot of like positive emotion, their own relationship at a younger age, or no?
No, zero memory of that. Like friendship wise, yeah, but I grew up. We'll probably get there, right? Yeah, we'll probably get to like how it actually was in the household.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you recall your relationship with your dad changing when your parents got divorced?
Well, I can't pinpoint that specific time, right? But yeah, my relationship with my dad changed for sure. I don't know that it ever really changed or if I just never really had like a super close relationship with him. But there was a turning point in my relationship with him where it got worse.
Okay, what's like your earliest memory of interacting with your dad? Like, do you like, you know, I feel like I have a hard time thinking about this when I was young, but like, do you have any good or bad memories, like the earliest ones from your childhood with your dad? Do you have anything like that?
I feel like I have like a vague memory of us, like him trying to teach me how to ride a bike or something. I feel like I have a vague memory of that. I have memory of us playing catch in the yard. Like those would be like early memories, yeah. But not so much, to be honest. Yeah.
Would you say, so based on kind of like, you don't have much memories with your dad, and you don't feel like your parents' relationship had much love.
Yeah.
Like growing up, even to the point, like probably to the point of getting divorced. How do you think that played like your view of your own relationships, and especially prior to being, prior to turning 18 and moving out and stuff like that? Like in your younger years, how do you remember viewing like the opposite sex and wanting a relationship with the opposite sex based on like what you saw in your own household?
Very validation seeking, or attachment issues for sure. So like, for example, I was with the same girl for like 10 years or whatever, even if it was not fulfilling. I think mainly because I just wanted to be loved or like feel love or whatever it was, whether that was toxic or not. I just wanted that a companion always,
Okay, so do you feel like that, did that feed into relationships with male friends kind of based off your relationship with your dad? So seeking validation from possibly male friends because you might have felt like you seek validation from your dad and didn't get it?
That's a really good question. I've never thought about it. I don't think so, no, because I think that I have always been on a constant quest to fulfill the dad portion of my life, probably, right? To like fill that void that maybe I didn't have. Because I feel as though I've always been like the leader in my friend group. Or I have always I've never strayed from my path because of others. So I was never seeking validation directly through like trying to like fit in, but I was for sure doing things in order to get validation from my peers or whatever, but it didn't always fall in line with what everyone else was doing. It was kind of me following my own path to carve out this caricature of who I wanted to be that I thought would be more accepted. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It's interesting that we're having this talk.
I think there's a lot there. Do you remember the first time you even recall like questioning this idea that like I want to be something, bigger, and like attributing it to the maybe not feeling like your dad gave you enough love or affection, stuff like that? Do you recall that being a conscious thought as a kid?
I don't recall it being a conscious thought with my dad as I was younger. So wild that you're asking this question. I swear to God. It's funny. It's funny how like I feel like the divine just kind of aligns things, because as I was in the shower this last weekend, I think I told my girlfriend Heather, who's the light of my life, I told her, I was like, I have always had this voice in my head that has been telling me like, you are meant for more. You are supposed to be whatever, you know what I mean? And I just recently connected that with probably my relationship to my dad.
Can you expand on how you felt like that connected?
Because, well, like a week ago, I had a kind of coming to Jesus moment where I figured out that I think I still do have some animosity towards my father, towards being angry towards him. And as I thought about it, I would that's where I was like, man, I never got the validation from a man, you know what I mean, or a father figure. I think that's kind of where a lot of things that I might be dealing with or have dealt with in the past is coming from. You get what I'm saying?
For sure. For sure.
And so I have always been somebody who like has had grandiose ideas or dreams or whatever, and was not able to execute them in my earlier years just because I didn't have the skill set or the tools necessary mentally and emotionally. And I figure now as I've gotten older, so like I had, I wanted to be a fucking musician. I wanted to be a movie star. I wanted to be a YouTuber. Still create content now. And I want it to be part of my full-time job. But as I'm like getting older and validating myself through other nuances in life and stuff, I don't find that it's like the validation from other people with me as a character so much as my work.
Okay.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question, by the way.
So I want to come back to this point, but I want to tangent a little bit because we just talked about your relationship with your dad and how you feel like that affected you. Now, how would you say that's different with your mom?
Yeah, so my mom, I think it still is like a constant battle for validation with. And I just recently...
Validation from your mom?
From my mom, yeah.
Okay.
But I just recently came to a coming to Jesus with that as well. So it's funny because, and Mom, if you happen to see this somehow, I love you, but this is just the truth, right? Throughout my whole life, like I've always kind of taken the unbeaten path. I've done whatever the fuck I wanted to do whenever I felt like it. It got me into a lot of trouble, but it also got me to a lot of successes that I've, come to. However, I was always checking in with my mom, to make sure it was okay. Almost like an asking for permission type of thing. And whether I decided to go through with it, with her validation over it or not, I still did it, but it was always like animosity, like she's not, okay with this idea. I'm gonna fucking prove her wrong and I'm gonna do the idea. You know what I mean? And so like, even with this gym or whatever, she's like, I don't know if it's the most financial, blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, well, fuck that, dude, I'm gonna show you. You know what I mean? And so like, still, I'm like searching that validation, I think, and I just came to that realization this past Sunday about that because I was like, they wanted to go to like dinner or something. I wasn't in the best like mind space where I wanted to be with other people. I was working, stuff like that. And I was like, I just need to protect my energy right now. I don't feel like going in that space right now. And yeah, that's so fucking weird. You're asking all the...
So do you feel like the seeking validation from your mom is as much because, so your dad didn't give you validation when you were young. Did your mom not give you validation when you were young either?
I don't know, because I think my mom gave me validation on the things that are like tangible and like the things that are for everyone to see. But there was a lot of pressure to like be a good student, follow the right path, go to college, get a good job or whatever, this, that. And that's not how I've ever wanted to live. You know what I mean? Because I always look at it like, why would I take advice from somebody that I don't want to live like? You know what I mean? And that's like something that I like, because I grew up poor. I grew up, with like a scarcity mindset, like, all these different things. I'm like, I don't want to grow up like that. So I'm not gonna take that advice, and, yeah, so she would give me validation for like things like you're handsome, you're good looking, you're so smart, blah, 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 blah. But then it was almost like flip the coin, and it's like when I would do things that I thought were smart or whatever, it's like, don't trust yourself, trust me. Go to school, don't be a musician, you know what I mean? That type of thing. She definitely validated me in like things that I think were important, like, that I'm decent looking and that I'm smart, but it's also like, at the same time, you're not smart if you get a D in class simply because you didn't do your homework or something,
Yeah. So did that kind of lead you into...
Which, by the way, she never called me stupid or anything. She never said anything like that.
No, of course.
Okay.
Okay. So does that lead you into... How do I want to say... I had this question. Do you feel like, as an adult, did you have a hard time making decisions at first without like having your mom to consult? Like, say, like when you initially didn't have her, Did you move out when you were 18?
Yeah, I moved out like immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so for you that beginning, it seemed like your mom you leaned on your mom for help with decision making, and losing that, being 18 and living by yourself, how did that kind of change for you as you got older? Like, do you feel like you still struggle with decision making? Does Heather fill more of that role now?
Yeah, I think so, but like I said, I've always been kind of on this chase to become this caricature of what I think a man is and like what I like have missed throughout life. So it's like, I will console with people on things and like, I'll take in their advice or maybe like take some of the tips or whatever. But at the end of the day, I've always, dude, you're asking so many questions that I just like recently answered to myself. But I said this too the other day where like throughout my life, if I have not followed my gut instinct, it has turned out bad. And maybe not like bad where it's detrimental or destructive, but it hasn't turned out the way that I've wanted it to go. And when I follow my gut instinct, even if I take in the opinions of others and I might change or tweak little things because of what they say, if it feels right or whatever, but when I follow my gut instinct over what other people are telling me, 9.75 times out of 10, even if there's a struggle period, it works out, you know?
Yes, and I do completely understand that because that part of that is that voice in your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that voice developed through your childhood.
Yeah.
Would you say most of your youth you were around your mom way more than you were around your dad?
Yeah, for sure. Probably more around like grandparents, like ultimately though. But yeah, definitely around my mom way more than my dad.
Because there's that idea in the first 3 years when you're a kid, basically your parents' nervous system gets imprinted on you.
Sure. Yeah.
So in those first 3 years, do you feel like you got a bigger imprint from your mom than your dad, almost?
I don't know. I would think probably if I think about like patterns and behavior, if I think about it from that standpoint, like how my patterns and behavior were growing up until like, recent years, probably because my mom's more scarce-minded, anxious, always worried about the rules and stuff like that. But I also wasn't worried about the rules ever, but I was anxious and I was like scarce-minded,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because when you talk, I very much relate to this idea. I have a voice in my head, and it doesn't
We're
matter.
not schizophrenic.
Not schizophrenic.
Hopefully.
No matter what I do my entire life, I feel incapable of making truly bad decisions.
Yes.
I literally feel incapable of it.
Yeah.
So much so that I feel like my default is to make a decision that is always going to end up being good. Like, to the limit that I like have fallen back on this.
Yes.
At times where like I need to like stop putting in effort,
Yeah.
but I trust that I'm not doing the wrong thing either.
Dude, it's like, I'm gonna get woo-woo here, but it's a connection, in my opinion, to the divine, where like, it's something that can't, like, the longer you hold it in and don't follow through, the longer and worse the outcome will be that you're not doing it, right? So it's like, throughout my whole life, creative endeavors have been like mostly what I need to do, right? And this gym to me is a creative endeavor. I get to create this space and make it a culture that I believe in, and it's not a physical thing. It's more of like an emotional, spiritual attachment that you get when you come here and you experience the community and stuff like that. So it's like, this is my creation. This is the thing that I get to create on top of that video and stuff like that. You get to elicit emotion out of people. So much so that like, I think if I don't use creation as my means to live for the rest of my life or whatever, that I won't truly be fulfilled and I will grow deeper into a pit of like unhappy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you feel that way where like, if you're not following your gut or your heart, every day goes by and you're like, I'm not listening to myself. I'm not trusting myself. This sucks. This hurts. I don't like what I'm doing right now. But it's like the conditioning in your brain to think that following that is not logical. It's illogical, and doing the material things such as like, getting a job at Costco or whatever would be safer. So do that. You might not be fulfilled, but it's safer. So stick to that. That's the material. And it's like, but following your heart and your gut is super logical, because if you're doing something that's fulfilling, not even just work related, just doing something that's with basketball might be like fulfilling to you to play intramural basketball. If you do something that's fulfilling and it feels good and whatever, that's so logical because it fills your cup. You have energy to do all the other things necessary then. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you my perspective on this.
Sure.
This voice that we have, because this voice is the reason I personally believe I can push through things that a lot of people haven't. It's the reason I can be so disciplined. I think it's more tied to our early childhood and the fact that we might not have felt this high amount of love and security from our parents.
Sure.
So what almost happens is we develop our own inner voice that has to guide us a little bit because we have to set ourselves up for our lives because we weren't given this support in a way that we needed it at a very young age.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of guys, so like David Goggins is like the stereotypical example of this. Like he grew up a very tough life. His dad was abusive to his mom, beat the crap out of him, and his mom obviously wasn't the best with him either because she was going through her own crap.
Right.
So it's an extreme example here of somebody else who he had to probably develop his own voice, and that's why he's somebody he can run 200 miles with a broken foot and he keeps going because that he learned to be guided by his own voice. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes people who grow up in very healthy lives and very healthy childhoods, which is great, and they're gonna probably grow up to be ultimately happier maybe people than I can be, but
at least happy,
but maybe not necessarily accomplish more, just be happy because they learned how to just accept life as it is.
Yeah, but is that fulfilled?
No, it's not necessarily fulfilled, but it's happy because they feel more maybe self-esteem, self-security in themselves and stuff like that. But they're generally, they don't have that itch.
To do crazy shit.
To do crazy shit, because the itch to do crazy shit does not come from healthy people.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
So that's kind of like where a lot of this childhood stuff came for me that I want to talk to people about it, because another question that I would ask based off of what was your self-esteem when you were young? Do you remember your self-esteem, say, 5 or younger possibly to maybe 10 years old to 15 years old? Do you remember it, how that transitioned?
Dude, there's not much of my childhood that I really remember. Going into middle school, teen years, I remember a lot of that, but my early childhood, I don't remember much of, to be honest. Probably a lot of trauma-related stuff,
Dude, I feel that, and you know why I personally think I'm like that?
Why?
It's because I feel like I was so focused on just wanting to get to be an adult.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean? When I was a kid, I wanted to be out of the control of my parents. I wanted to be out of control, of my strict dad. I wanted to have my freedom.
Interesting.
And I feel like my brain was just so focused on life's going to be better in the future that I don't it wasn't great at the moment. So I just didn't think it was worth saving.
Interesting.
Okay,
yeah.
So, and I was so forward focused.
So you didn't download any of it, you feel like, because of that?
To a limit, yeah.
Wow.
I never had, depression or anything when I was in high school. I was always, no matter what happened, I was like, I'm gonna fucking be done with high school. I'm gonna get to college. I'm gonna get, I was just so focused on the future. I was so focused on the independence I was gonna have and getting a job and making my own money.
Yeah.
And I grew up, poor. I grew up always that scarcity mentality. My entire childhood, I remember thinking, I did not ask my parents for stuff because I knew I didn't have the money. I didn't want to make them feel guilty about me asking and them telling me I didn't have the money. Mm-hmm. So I was looking forward to the future. When am I gonna have my own money? And I wanted to make sure I never ever had a situation that I couldn't get something I wanted because of money.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So in a sense, I look at it as my childhood was just I needed to get through it to get to the good part of life.
Wow.
Which is why it wasn't worth remembering specifics of it.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a little, chew on that a little bit.
Yeah.
But so, again though, with that being said, you don't have much memories.
Yeah.
What's your earliest memory of your self-esteem? When was the first time in your life that you truly captured this idea that this is how I feel about myself compared to the world around me?
Yeah. That's hard.
You know what, let me ask this question a different way.
Sure.
In high school, I thought I was a bit of a nerd. I thought I was a bit of a geek, but I was kind of a jock.
Yeah.
But I had low self-esteem because of the fact that I didn't feel like popular kids liked me or the pretty girls didn't talk to me.
Yeah.
So I had low self-esteem in high school because I didn't get the attention I wanted to get. So that's kind of an example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of have always felt like I was the shit, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I never had poor, at least not super poor self-esteem from what I can remember. I didn't know like really that bullying was like a real thing. Probably due to part of the way that I grew up to and the things I was exposed to, I just kind of thought that like people gave each other shit. And like when I look back, maybe I got bullied like a little bit, but like I didn't actually get bullied because I always pushed back. And then like I was like, could talk to those people like normal people.
Like you didn't feel like a victim.
Yeah, never, because I just felt like I would beat that dude's ass, you know what I mean? And like it just never, yeah, I don't know. But like if you would look from the outside perspective, I looked like an emo kid that like skateboarded, did drugs. I didn't do any drugs. I was straight edge like basically all of high school. But I looked like one of those kids, you know? And yeah, but like my self-esteem was never like bad. Also, I was in a weird situation too in high school where I feel like I immediately started dating like one of the hot girls, you know what I mean? And like we stuck together for a long time. And you know, I had friends in like every single social group. So I was like in a weird position where I never gave a fuck about what anyone thought, to be honest. Like sometimes, yeah, here and there, I was a kid, so I'd be like, oh, you know, I'd feel like kind of awkward here or whatever. But yeah, I never was searching for the social acceptance of like the cool kids or whatever, because I didn't even know there was cool kids, because I talked to everybody, you know?
Like you had a good feeling of your social value.
Yeah,
around other
100%.
people.
Yeah, I never felt rejected by like anyone except maybe a handful of times. There's one girl that I remember I felt rejected by, and it wasn't me trying to date her or anything. She just literally wouldn't give me like the time of day, but her friends would talk to me regularly. But it was just one girl. So it was like, and I still remember her to this day. So it probably did bother me a little bit. Yeah. But not as much as I think that. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think I had more self-esteem issues kind of as I got older, you know, and I even dealt with some of that recently too.
Okay, what do you think made the self-esteem issues come out as you got older?
Well, what I think it is like, okay, so I've been going again on this like spiritual journey, I feel like, right? Where I'm like kind of coming to terms with a lot of things and like awakening. It's weird. So like awakening again, right? But I think what it is like this like social programming of like where life is supposed to be. And I've never thought this way ever until recently. But social programming of where like life should be, what you should be doing at certain ages and stuff like that. And I've never held to that subscription model at all until recently where like I'm like, well, my one friend bought a house, you know, my other friend is like in his career, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, it's a struggle period right now, but with purpose behind it. You know what I mean? Like I don't get to go hang out with people all the time as the normal people do. You know, I don't have a secure income all the time as the normal person does. You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff where it's like, I'm just like, I got into this weird period where I'm like, man, like what the fuck is going on? But then like, I bring it back to perspective and I'm like, well, I'm the one taking chances. I'm the one who's not getting drunk on the weekends to deal with my problems. I'm the one who, you know, a whole bunch of other stuff where I'm just kind of like, okay, reel it back in, like bring it back. You know what I mean? And I think that that's where like the self-esteem stuff kind of came in. But like I figured it out. Like I still think that like I'm the shit. Like I'm doing things that no one else around me does. You know what I mean? So yeah. I'm always able to like reel myself back in with things. You know what I mean?
Which is good. Like you don't lack the self-awareness.
Yeah.
To even be aware when you're maybe lacking the self-awareness, then we become reaware.
Yeah, totally. And having Heather anchor me down sometimes too is super helpful, you know?
And how is that then, having Heather be this person that is such a rock for you, that anchors you down, especially compared to past relationships and stuff like that?
I mean, it's night and day difference from what I've experienced in life in general, because no matter the decision that I make, she trusts me like as a man to make the right decision. She trusts me as a leader, you know what I mean? And she believes in everything that I do 100% because I don't give her any other reason to not believe me. You know what I mean? So like having somebody that like has so much faith in you that you have in yourself, if not maybe a little bit more, and is able to bring you back to the reality of what's going on is just so, it's like a pivotal moment in life when you realize that somebody's there for you like that. You know what I mean?
It kind of makes it makes a lot of stuff feel like it can be not okay and it's still fine, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Right? Like you're willing to take on any battle that has to come up.
Yeah. Any
Yeah.
battle.
Yeah. There's it's a feeling of security, but like in a more complex, wholesome way.
Yeah.
Because the comfort I've reached in my life, and not comfort in like you should not be comfortable to grow.
Not complacency.
Yeah, not complacency.
Right.
But the comfort I've felt in my life, the deeper and longer my marriage and relationship with my wife has gotten.
Yeah.
And the more I've also like realized how much she's there for me.
Yeah.
And like, you know this better than anybody else because I know you go through this. That sometimes that negative voice that wants to be hard on you, right? And that how much that voice probably, I may not be curious. Has that voice? Do you feel like that voice comes up less for you?
No,
Like,
it's an everyday battle.
it's an everyday battle, but is it literally just as? Is the battle just as intense every day, or do you feel like that battle has gotten better with age? Has it gotten better with a better support system? That kind of stuff.
I feel like when you're wired different, you know, that is part of the motivating factor. It's part of the drive, you know, and just because it's an everyday battle doesn't mean you have better coping mechanisms, right? So like, or doesn't mean you don't have better coping mechanisms with that. So like, every day it is a battle where like my mind is like, you're lazy, you're being lazy. And I'm like, no, fucking not. Like, I'm gonna get up right now and show you lazy, you know what I mean? And then I go do whatever is necessary to like do it. And it's but I don't see that as like a bad thing, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So, okay, objectively, it's gotten better. Yeah, but it's still a constant battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to a limit, you could argue wouldn't be you if it was not some limit always a battle.
Exactly. Yeah, and yeah, I think that voice is like useful. You know, it's kind of the same reason why like in the gym sometimes like you want your homies to call you a pussy or something, like lift that shit the fuck up, blah blah. You know what I mean? And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking do it. You know, that type of thing. Where maybe we shouldn't rely so much on negative speak or whatever in certain situations, but like I also think like David Goggins is the guy who's like he's still like, you're fat, you're fucking fat, you know what I mean? Like telling himself that stuff. You're still that fat guy in the mirror, blah blah blah, and it seems to work for him, you know? So it's a battle still, but it has gotten better with the way that I'm able to shut it down.
Is that battle was that battle like, do you remember that battle being there and like how like your friendship was with like male friends when you were young, and then having that negative self-talk, you know, because you kind of say like, guys do kind of almost, we get this like, tell me I'm being a bitch so that I get up and I do this thing that I'm not doing. Like I almost need you almost like feel that helps, but how do you feel like your relationship with guy friends and that type of behavior can change? So like, how do I say this? Like I believe I can have some friends where maybe that is almost their purpose in the friendship. Like there's somebody who like, just yell at me and I'm gonna get, you know.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want all my friends to be like that.
No, for sure not. Yeah.
And maybe this is almost a little bit more of a general question overall, because what I ultimately want to get at here is, how do you feel like your friendships with males from your youth to your adulthood has changed? Like whether friendships have gotten deeper or less deep, or
I think that that's like a really nuanced question, I feel like, because on one hand, like to me, the relationships that I create now are way deeper because I expect something out of somebody. Not like an exchange of good or whatever, but it's like I have expectations in order for us to be friends. You know what I mean? And my expectations are that like I hold you to a high standard, and if you're not the quality of man that I want to be, I'm not gonna fuck with you at all. Like it's just period. I don't want to be around you. You know what I mean? Because I need to be able to trust you with my wife or my girl. I need to be able to trust you if I would like, you know, give you some money or whatever. I need to be able to fully trust you and believe that you're there for me as I would be there for you and do, you know, whatever. And when you're a kid, I think it's more based on like, are you having a good time together? You know?
Yeah.
I don't need to have a good time with all my friends. You know, I can have my closest friends I don't need to see, you know, because I know that if I need them, they're there, you know, and that's the high expectation that I hold. And so like, as I've kind of like grown up or whatever, because I do have these higher expectations of people, as I feel like I've matured or just had my coming to Jesus, I've like lost a lot of friends, you know, in the past like 2 years. And I went through some of the hardest times of my life in the past 3 years, you know. And that all happened, and I realized like the type of men that I want to surround myself around and the men that I don't want to surround myself around. And so I feel like if I, the connections are deeper, the friendships are deeper, because I don't want friends who are drinking all the time. I want friends who are productive, who do the right things, who morally align with what I align with as well. You know what I mean? Don't cheat on their girls, or don't, fuck people over for no reason. Like, there's a lot of things that I don't accept out of a friend now that I may have in the past.
Because if they were a good time, that's all that kind of mattered at the time.
Yeah,
right?
Well, yeah. When you're younger, that's all you would think about. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Where now it's like, well, I don't like. What if you try to fuck my girl? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you feel like when you were younger, it would have benefited you to have a deeper friendship with like a guy friend?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did have deep friendships. Like, I still, to this day, my best friend, Ricky, like, we had a super deep friendship. We still have a super deep friendship,
Could you talk about mental health with him back in the day? Was that something?
I think I could have, like, if I wanted to.
But it just wasn't as talked about.
Yeah, it just wasn't as talked about. Like, yeah, I definitely think that I could have. I remember specifically one time he, like, cried when he found out how, like, a period of my life went. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that I definitely could have if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, I didn't cry much when I was in high school and middle school, or, not, because you're a boy, you just don't cry much. But the couple times I cried, like, after, like, a really hard wrestling meet, like, a really tough match that I lost or something.
Yeah.
It's amazing, like, I had a couple, like, older guys on the wrestling team that were, like, brothers to me, and, like, crying into their arms was, like, such a cathartic, like, good memory, even though, like, it was, like, a tough loss, and I remember the meet, but, like, that connection I felt with that friend to, like, cry in his arms, it's almost like a thing that all men, like, need to experience more often, need to experience when they're kids and when they're adults, because there's the idea women can go cuddle on their friend's lap and cry, and not that guys that cuddle on their friend's lap and cry, but I don't think enough guys would call a friend and go fall into his arms crying like, dude, I'm fucking having a hard, they won't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would do it, even because I only did it in these, like, very vulnerable moments in high school, right after a wrestling match, and I'm exhausted and I'm beat and I just can't believe I lost, but in normal everyday life, like, if anxiety and depression is hitting me, I'd be hard pressed to call a friend and cry on their shoulder.
Yeah, I think that it's really important to have those men in your life, though, that you can confide in, because I think that, and this is just, we can get into therapy and all this stuff, but women can't empathize with a guy, like, crying as a guy can empathize with another guy, or sympathize, the word, whatever, because they just don't have the same life that we do. It's easier for us to kind of relate to a woman crying or whatever, because she's emotional, they're a woman, I've had this experience before, it maybe doesn't affect me as much. But men go through such a different type of life, their whole entire life. We're not going to be saved. We're not going to get taken care of. We have expectations that society puts on us, whether people don't want to normalize that or not. It's always going to be there. If the world comes to doomsday, right? If the zombie apocalypse happens, who are we going to rely on? Men.
Yeah.
So we have all these outside pressures, whether the modern world wants to accept it or not, that women will never feel. And so it's so important to find other men that you can have those types of relationships with, because they can sympathize with you.
Yeah. That relationship, you see a man cry, you understand what it took for him to get there.
Yeah.
I don't think where women maybe don't necessarily understand the battle that a guy has to get to, that actually got to the point that they cried.
Yeah.
Or that they showed emotions externally and didn't just show them internally.
Yeah, because it is a battle. It's like, because you are told, don't cry because you're a boy. Don't show emotion, you're a man, whatever. And people will say the bullshit where they're like, we don't expect that of men. But watch a man who cries every single day with his wife, and what happens in the next 3 years, 2 years, what's going to happen? They're probably going to divorce. She's not going to trust his judgment anymore. Something's going to happen there. You know what I mean? So they want us to express emotion and do things as a woman would, without the courtesy or exception that a woman would get, you know?
Yes. And you said something there that I'd like to make a counterpoint to. You said we're told men shouldn't cry. I don't think I was ever told I shouldn't cry.
Yeah.
What it was instead is a constant image is if you want to be looked up to as a man, you're a tough guy. So I don't think nobody ever said, John, don't cry.
Yeah.
But it was very clear in the society around me, on TV, and everything around me that if I wanted to be the guy that got attention for being a man, I couldn't cry. I had to be bigger. I had to be strong. I had to put on muscle.
The superhero.
I had to have facial hair.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough I had facial hair. I felt bad for all the guys that didn't in high school.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and dude, to be honest, like to a point, I want to make it clear what I like think is that I do think that there are acceptable and unacceptable times for men to cry. You know, I genuinely think that. I don't think a guy should be a crybaby. No. I think that a lot of guys need to man the fuck up and just deal with life because this is life. You either accept it for what it is and you make a metamorphosis, you transform and you become the man that does get the fruits of his labor or whatever, or you be a fucking victim and you cry yourself to sleep and then you get a woman who's gonna boss you around and you know you're gonna be pushed around by your boss at work and all these different things, or you become the free man who, you know, chooses life, who chooses to wake up every single day, love his wife, his good looking wife, and all these different things, and you live life on your own terms and stuff. And you definitely don't cry in front of your woman all the time, you know?
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Crying is 100% acceptable for men. I think it's a matter of controlling your emotions is still a skill that, man or woman, we should all be practicing. And you can argue, because at the end of the day, sometimes men are relied on in moments of true like catastrophes happening, whatever. You have to truly be able to control your emotions. But when the time is right and you are with your woman and you're in your private space and you feel overwhelmed, fucking cry out, weep on her shoulder. But it shouldn't be a daily occurrence. It shouldn't be a
and also have a plan going forward too. Like, don't just cry and then not like have a plan of action or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, I think that that's something that's just like, dudes will cry and then never fix the issue.
Dude, that right there. So almost like when I think like I never cried much in high school, or like what. I didn't cry, not because I feel like nothing got me emotional, but because the second something happened that would have made me want to cry, my brain was like, how the fuck did I fix it?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's and that's almost that voice that we're talking about here. And sometimes like when people want to like look at me and say, you know, I've done a lot or accomplished a lot, and they want to think like maybe I out-willed them or out-efforted them. Sometimes I feel bad because I also want to say, well, yeah, but I also, this voice in my head made me do this. And that voice in my head is also the reason that like, oh fuck, you just fucked this thing up. This shit just went completely sideways. That voice in the head, it's like, nope, don't bitch about it. Like what? Let's fix it. Like what's the next? Like I almost instantly start thinking of the solution. I don't spend no time thinking about dwelling like on this shitty thing that just happened.
Because sometimes it's just not worth it. Like you think it's the end of the world in the moment, but like. So a skill that a lot of guys have just like lost is being stoic and like figuring out, like, I don't think stoicism is the end all be all,
no.
Have it, you know, whatever. But like definitely the ability to step back, third person, look at the situation and be like, yo, do I need to cry or is that a waste of 5 minutes? You know what I mean? Because like there's so many things that have happened even in this last year where I'm like, should I cry? No, I shouldn't, because I could just do this instead and I'm gonna fix the problem in 10 more minutes. Everything's good then. You know, so it's just that skill of being able to take a step back, almost being stoic, where you're like, this is not going to bother me right now because I need to figure out the solution to this issue, and then figuring it out, and everything's fucking good. It's fine.
Stoicism is still needed without a doubt. Yeah. While I agree, I don't think it's the end all be all, but people have to be able to step back.
Yeah,
you have to get stoic to step back.
Yeah, you have to.
Because I think of it as like when I try to sometimes fix my own injuries. And I'm trying to sit there and like figure out why is this shoulder bothering me. I'm too in my own head about my own injury to actually fix it. Sometimes I like need somebody who's outside of me to step back and fix it for me because I'm feeling that pain, so I can't process the right decision to fix that pain.
Yeah.
So in the same sense, when people feel emotional pain, you can't logically think and make right decisions when you're feeling some emotional pain.
Yeah.
But if you can separate from it for a bit, forget the emotional pain, then logic kind of comes back into the picture.
Yeah.
I agree. It's a skill that can be worked on, but a lot of people don't really even know how to start.
Yeah, 100%.
And part of it too is I don't know how much of it is just so naturally in me because of my childhood, and that's kind of where I want to figure out other people's childhoods. And people have this voice, people have this same thing that I think I have. I'm trying to find all the similarities that are there. But I definitely, there's the need and the striving for affirmation, I think at a young age is something that I definitely felt. I think sounds like you definitely felt, and
absolutely.
It drove you to not just be okay with what you had, but to always push for more.
Yeah, for sure. I remember distinctly like getting like pissed off at my parents at one point, and like, you know, because we were broke or whatever, they couldn't like do certain things, and I was just like, when I make my fucking first $1 million, I'm not sharing shit with you guys. Like, I remember getting that mad and being like, this is what I'm doing, and when I do it, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's definitely, you're looking for the affirmations from your parents for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I really appreciate you taking an opportunity here and like opening up about your childhood.
I love it, man.
It's amazing how it relates so much into what we do and what we live in our day-to-day lives, and how much you like have to unwrap your childhood to like keep unwrapping your adult life.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, and I just recently wanted to take a deep dive into that too. There's some like breathwork stuff coming up into Milwaukee, and there's like a couple different like people that I've been thinking about getting like coaching from or whatever. Then I'm like, man, maybe I should take a deeper dive into my childhood. Like, why can't I remember when I was like 6, you know, and under or whatever? Like, what happened, you know, in those years that I'm like blocking out? Because I also think coming to terms and peace with all that stuff can only like propel you forward more, right?
Yes.
So, it's definitely something that I'm like more interested in exploring.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go their whole lives never exploring their childhood and probably regret it. And I think a lot of people who live more fulfilled lives ultimately do unwrap it more. They unravel, I am the way I am for very specific reasons.
Yeah, dude.
And a lot of them have to do the first 3 to 4 years of your life.
They do, and you know, I see some of that stuff, and like I read stuff about like kids too, because like I have a kid.
Yep.
And I've definitely done things that I'm not proud of, you know, while having a kid, but I've made it more an effort to be like a conscious parent, you know, in the past couple years, because I'm like, fuck, dude, I really don't want to fuck him up, you know? Like, I don't even want him to like use certain language, because like I think that when I use certain language, like your son or your daughter or whatever, they're gonna mirror you as you get older. And I saw this quote, like, your kids are eventually gonna like realize that you're bullshit or whatever, something like that, right? And I'm like, whoa, I don't want to be bullshit. Like, I want to practice what I preach. So like, you know, there's no I can'ts in like my house. There's no, I think I've told you that before. Yeah, there's no I can'ts like in the gym when I'm working out. Like, I just refuse to use that language. And like, I'm also trying to instill that on our kids too, you know?
Yeah, it's this idea of you can always try.
Yeah, you can do fucking anything. I swear to God, I believe in that, like, so much. I like, this phrase that like I've been using a lot lately is I am, you know what I mean? Because like, I just think that those words are so powerful when tied to the right verbiage after, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that some more, because I feel like that could be a whole conversation.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, awesome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, brother.
Thanks.
Peace out, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully we'll be getting this episode edited soon and more episodes out there.